Hi, I'm Tom King. You're watching BatFacts. Hell yeah!
Thanks, Tom. Welcome back to BatFacts. It's become the wrestling is fake of Batman fandom. The internet is lousy with blogs and videos all claiming that they have irrefutable evidence, poking a giant hole in the entire Batman mythos, shouting, "Batman kills" from the clickbait mountaintop. This episode of BatFacts, we look at Batman's complex, sometimes contradictory history with killing, and hopefully dispel some of the misconceptions about his so-called one rule. First off, let's think about that whole one rule thing for a second. Sure, it sounds badass in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight for Batman to get all up in Joker's grill and say he only has one rule.
I have one rule.
But Batman, as a character, must have several. Even in the next movie, it's
No guns, no killing.
Where's the fun in that?
in that moment, he's showing the Joker his resolve to not kill him, but saying, just as sure as I won't kill you, I will defeat you. As well, it shows Batman isn't bound by the law. He's free to commit all manner of assaults, surveillance, extradition, break and enter, child endangerment, property damage, all in his pursuit of justice, but he won't kill people. As writer Chris Sims astutely put in his article on the subject, Batman doesn't kill, and Batman will not allow one person to kill another. Add no guns to that list, and we have a solid foundation of Batman's moral code, which isn't governed by any legal system or religion. One would think this code would be largely influenced by his travels and training as a young man, the Genesis years of Batman. Christopher Nolan touched on this briefly during Batman Begins. This scene shows that Bruce is more concerned with moral justice than law, a trait that would carry over into his later life. Though, his perception of the criminality of his mission seems to differ depending on the version.
But I never became one of them.
We are criminals, Clark. We always have been.
But this isn't Batman in rules. This is Batman in killing. And as many of you know, in the comics, Batman started off straight up killing fools. At first it was threats and gun smoke. Then killing a vampire, hanging a giant out of his plane by his neck, shooting some guys in a truck, and pushing a man out of a window. And killing a bunch of, quote, Chinamen, unquote, in various ways, like pushing them through sword blades or crushing them with a giant stone idol.
Also, dude, Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature. Asian American, please.
Killing, along with the use of guns, were both wisely banned in 1940. Any argument that Batman should return to, as some would say, how he was originally intended, fall apart with the whole Chinaman thing, or when you realize that he originally had a habit of leaving rooms with a jaunty au revoir, or when he would say things like quiet or Papa Spank, which I think we can all agree is a far cry from.
You don't get it, son. This isn't a trash heap. It's an operating table.
Needless to say, Batman had a long way to go before his morality was established. Fast forward to the post-Miller late 80s. With DC Comics looking to appeal to older audiences, writers began taking many more chances in terms of the kind of extreme situations and violence that could be included in the stories. Two writers that pushed the envelope more than any other at the time were Thanos creator Jim Starlin writing Batman, and Mike W. Barr's 13-issue run on Detective, which saw Batman use a goon as a human shield and culminated in the Year 2 storyline, the delightfully off-kilter story which was featured in the Batman and Guns episode of BatFacts. Barr also wrote the Messiah of the Crimson Sun story, where Batman basically reduces Ra's al Ghul to dust and blows the ashes into space. Ra's would return some 4 years later in a story written by Doug Moench, where Batman is surprised to see him alive, which only doubles down on killing Ra's being Batman's initial intent. Starlin would pen 16 issues of Batman, also upping the violence and adult-oriented content. Like here from Batman issue 414. That's a snapped neck, right? Or when he lures two men with machine guns into shooting each other. An early highlight of Starlin's run was the controversial introduction of future Better Know a Bad Guy episode subject, the KG Beast. The tenacious Soviet assassin presents a bigger threat than what Batman was able or willing to topple, so Batman fights smart, not hard, and lures the beast into a room in the sewer, barricades the door, and leaves, presumably to starve him to death. An uncharacteristically brutal end for Batman to give to somebody, and DC must have thought the same, as it was later revealed in a story by Marv Wolfman that Batman eventually gave police the KG Beast's location, after being confronted by Nightwing. Starlin's issues also featured an increasingly rebellious Jason Todd as Robin, planting the seeds for his eventual reader-aided demise in the climax of Starlin's time on Batman, the headline-grabbing Death in the Family storyline, which would give readers the chance to decide Robin's fate through a 1-800 number. Batman reprimanding Robin for general violence and one potential murder is a theme that would appear elsewhere, such as All-Star Batman and Under the Red Hood, and serve to underscore Batman's stance on killing. So despite bending to their logical limit, the no-killing editorial rule was held firm throughout the 80s. Save for the resurrected Ra's al Ghul and certain interpretations of Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, which contained various clues that its ending was a final Joker story of sorts. But this rule was laid down by DC for their comics, and didn't necessarily extend to the character when transferred to other media, as moviegoers learned in 1989. I don't think Tim Burton's Batman set out to have Batman leave behind a body count, but as detailed in BatFacts Episode 3, it was a big Hollywood production in a time where adhering to rules laid down by comic books wasn't seen as a priority, especially considering the even more glaring alterations to Batman lore in that film, and because in the very next film, Batman literally shoves dynamite down someone's pants like he's Roadrunner or something. In the ending to the 1989 NES video game, after defeating the Joker, he simply throws him off the cathedral as opposed to the more complicated series of events seen in the film. The filmmakers and game developers' lack of adherence to the character's long-held ideals set an unfortunate precedent that, in some cases, continues with adapted work to this day. Also, this was the 80s. Comic movies weren't yet their own genre of film, and it wasn't an action movie until you had killed at least a few dozen henchmen in spectacular fashion, and had your villain plummet to their death. A room full of henchmen standing between Batman and his goal has been present in every iteration of Batman, and is an essential staple of Batman storytelling. The 66 Batman show had one of these scenes every episode. They were brightly colored cannon fodder to dispense biff bang pows. The hired goon rolls off screen, and they may as well disappear like in early beat-em-up games, or off-panel, never to be heard from again. These type of disposable henchmen are essential to video games. Dozens upon dozens of similar-looking enemies descend on our hero, and he expertly disposes of them. The ARKHAM series took this to the next level with their unparalleled free-flow combat system, one whose look and feel clearly inspired the warehouse scene in Batman vs. Superman. But if we switch into detective mode in the game, we see something very interesting. Every single henchman is simply unconscious. None of them die. When the Batmobile is introduced in the final installment, Arkham Knight, enemies were propelled away from the car using electricity, as opposed to being found by Alfred in the Batmobile's wheel well the next morning. This is a conscious effort by the makers of the game to not have Batman kill. The issue of collateral damage didn't really enter the conversation regarding superhero films until fairly recently, most notably when Zack Snyder's Man of Steel depicted what some saw as a gratuitous amount of collateral damage and presumed life loss in the action sequences, evoking the horrors of terrorism. This was smartly reframed in Batman v Superman to show the resulting chaos from ground level, and several other films that followed would course correct to make sure that the characters crash into empty buildings or deserted areas.
How quickly can we buy this building?
But before Zack
He kills all the time.
Snyder took things stylishly too far, there was Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, and its I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you killing of Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul. As much as I adore this series, this climactic quotable always rung false to me. It just seems like semantics that wouldn't sway someone with Bruce's resolve and intellect. Fans like their Batman violent, but I think it's fair to say the majority of fans don't want to see a killer Batman. In any depiction where he's come close, it rings false. There are plenty of killer vigilante characters at work. Punisher comes to mind, or even the Red Hood if you don't want to leave the DCU. The not killing is what sets Batman apart. As tempting as the notion may be, I don't think the story of Bruce Wayne should be a vigilante justice tale like Falling Down or Death Wish, about a man driven too far and taking law into his own hands, leaving a trail of dead bad guys in his wake. Not that that isn't a worthwhile premise, but it isn't Batman. In his run, Batman writer Tom King, friend of the show,
Hell yeah.
calls Batman an engine that turns pain into hope. You don't often think of Batman as a hopeful character. He's definitely not an optimist, but deep down his mission is rooted in hope. Killing represents an end of hope on some level, and ever since his parents were taken from him and he lost all hope of ever being with them again, he's devoted his whole life to working against that. Paramount to everything else, Batman is against killing. Because Batman is a hero. That's going to be it for a look at Batman and killing. What did I miss? What are your favorite stories that tested Batman's resolve to not kill? Discuss them in the comments below, and as always, like, subscribe, tell a friend who likes Batman, and support your local comic shop. Stay tuned for our next episode, where for our 10th episode, we'll go back to the origins of BatFacts and discuss Grant Morrison's Batman R.I.P. Thanks for watching over the past year, and stay tuned for many more episodes of BatFacts. Some Bat time, same Bat channel. Thanks for watching.